Chronicles with your host, Cosmon Cal.
That's right. It's your hostess with the most. It's burning like toast is your naga, your nerve, fresh off of the curb, jelly jamming, preserve Cosmon, right back in it like I left something. Hey, off a good night. You dig what I'm talking about? I had a long day yesterday, worked till 12, then came in and cooked Jabari last night. You dig what I'm saying? We might get into a replay into that tomorrow morning. You dig what I'm saying? I was supposed to hit JJ live last night, but man, I was too tired. You dig what I'm talking about? Sit there and build with people at that time. It was a little late, and I was just done, But I wanted to get back on here, man, and man, I've been in searching into so much, right? And you look in a WASPy, man, and by far, I haven't. I haven't seen, a book of any sort from any source, right? That when it comes to being an Aboriginal American reveals more nationality, heritage, culture, or ethnicity. I've never seen any other book in the world reveal the ethnicity of the Aboriginal American and then go on to claim that it is the modern day Negro. He is the American. I've never seen that. So when you're searching in WASPy, right, and you come across these things that reveal so much Aboriginal American heritage, indigenous Indian heritage, you dig what I'm saying, in the Americas, it is startling. You know what I mean? For instance, let me just share one little thing real quick, right? And which is why we even got into this conversation, into this build today, right? This is the first book of God, 27 and 42 in the book of WASPy, or the book of Earth, Sky, and Spirit. Now they're talking about into the great prophet of America, right? I know y'all instantly, you dig what I'm talking about. Y'all like, what are you talking about? The great prophet of America. That proves that you don't know nothing, right? Just like they talk about Moses, just like they talk about Abraham, Jesus, Brahma. You dig what I'm talking about? Chinese, Confucius, Sakai, just like they talk about all them, over there in the Eastern countries. There is a great prophet of America, an American Indian. And he was 100% Algonquin, right? So true God has given a message to him, to the prophet of America, and his name is Iwata. So I know there's probably a lot of people who think that they got it, right? So they like, yo, we heard about Iwata. That's the story of Hiawatha. Well, wrong. You're wrong. The great American prophet is not Hiawatha. Remember, that is the Iroquoian tale of Hiawatha, who goes to a great peacemaker named Donaganawata. Now, that would be your Iwata. Now, funny how in Danganawata, the same name is kind of represented, right? But Hiawatha is a cannibal, right? He's not the good guy in the story. He becomes the good guy, right? But at first, he's not the good guy. He's a warrior and a cannibal too. And he must go to the peacemaker, right? So without further ado, I just like to drop in, a little visuals breakdown on the Iroquois and the Haudennashanee. You dig what I'm talking about? Let me show y'all this. Let me move this banner. Let me remove this. My bad. Let me remove this and show y'all this. This is the first book of God, chapter 27 and 42. They're talking about the people in the Americas, right? And who they're going and who the creator is inspiring to come over to the Americas, right? Watch this. It says, I will bring their kindred, their blood, their people group. I will bring their kindred, faithists, right? Praisers of the Great Spirit, right? From across the water. So you're either coming from the Pacific or you're coming across the Atlantic. But who are these people? These people are wise-speaking people who worship none born of woman, right? Now, while that may apply to certain peoples, you dig what I'm talking about, it don't apply to others, right? Right? These people who are coming across who are kindred, praisers of the Great Spirit, right? To the people in America who are wise-speaking people and who worship none born of woman, right? So this right here, a wise-speaking people, that could apply to a bunch of people, but who worship none born of a woman. So that marks out any Catholic, any Christian, any Puritan, in any of the religious Abrahamic faiths, whether you're Puritan or whatever, a Protestant, a Calvinist, you are not the wise-speaking people because you praise a person born from a woman, Jesus, right? So you're all your pilgrims, really, except one. Well, I'd say two people, right? Because in these groups of these pilgrims came a people we know today as Quakers, right? They were not necessarily faithists by rite and ceremony, but faithists by deed. And a people who do not war. So this marks out the Jews. You're not them. You're not the wise-speaking people from across the water, Mr. Ashkenazi. And it's not anti-Semitism. You're just not a wise-speaking people who, even though you don't personally worship none born of a woman, but you are a people who do war and who do kill off weaker nations. And also you are the people primarily who back the financing and insured the cargo of chattel slavery chattel slaves being took from Europe and Africa and then enslaved in the Americas. So you are not a people who kill who do not kill off weaker nations. You actually do. But we know who these people who the praisers of the Great Spirit. These are the sons of Moses. These are the Israelites, right? These are your Quakers, one out of Africa, one out of Europe. A wise-speaking people who do not war, who do not kill off weaker nations. And even when the editors of OWASP right here in 139, right, try to imply that these were the pilgrims. The only reason you would apply that these as pilgrims is because the Quakers came at that time. Everybody else, the Puritan, the everybody, you did what I'm talking about, was a praiser of Christ, and also came warred, pillaged, raped, and ravaged. From the time they got here, so did the Masons. So did the Jews, right? Only people who didn't were the Quakers and the Israelites, right? Not the Jews, the Israelites. Remember, a Jew and an Israelite are not the same thing. But look what the Creator say. I will come in the Tononacci. Huh? These are the tribes of the north and the Hochicas, right? The Hochicas are the entire people group of the South and Southeast Negroidal Algonquin speaking types, from Florida to Virginia on over to the Mississippi on down, right? This is who encompass people like the Far East as the Talusa and the Timucua and the Itawa, all the way to the Chata. This is why the Chata, even in their history, they said they come from the south up into these areas, and even all the Negroidal people type is all called Huchica, right? And this is why the Chata and their great king built a river, right, that runs north from south to north, called the Chattahoochee, right? So he's saying, I'm gonna come in these Negroidal stocks, the Huchica, right? This would be all of your people's stocks of the South, right? All of them. It wouldn't matter if you, like I said, it wouldn't matter if you called it Caddo or Washita in the West, and Paul Monkey and Arapaho or Appalachia in the East. All those people, all of them, right? Confederized would be Huchicas. The northern part of this confederacy is just called Powhatan, right? The northern part of this is called Powhatan, but they are all Huchicas. And also he says, look, I'm going to come in the Mohican, and the Iroquois confederacies. My hand shall reach around the world in that day. What day? 1848, beginning the Cosmon era. I will chase away all the gods and saviors born of woman, and all men shall worship the Great Spirit only. Go forth, build wise. And it says, right, that he will come in the Tonacci, the Huchicas, the Mohican, and the Iroquois confederacies, right? And they said this is from the time, what we call colonial times, in that day. From what day? This is the time of colonization. This began around 1450 and lasted to around 1850, when the four heads of the beast, or what you call religion, were cast out of heaven. And from then till the time of this editing, 150 years after Cosmon, which is 1998, right? On the earth, beast struggled on, or the religious struggled on, but without a unified head. and it ultimately wither away upon the earth as man grows into his birthright. Now we see this happening today. You can't even pay the kids to go into church. So this is Jehovah Chronicles, number 143, the Haudennashanee and the Iroquois and Owaspy. So I wanted to give a little background on the Iroquois, right? So let's go.
Sky upon which
Wait a minute. Before we go there, let me throw this up. Boom. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for the purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and education. And all rights have been reserved. You dig what I'm saying, man? Thank everybody for coming through, man. You dig what I'm talking about? This is what we're going to get to. Let's break it down. Let's start breaking down some of this Iroquois and Owaspy. Let's get to the history first, though.
which the sky people lived. They lived quietly and happily. No one ever died or was born or experienced sadness. Created, there was an island, floating in the sky, upon which the sky people lived. They lived quietly and happily. No one ever died or was born or experienced sadness. However, one day, one of the sky women realized that she was going to give birth to twins. She told her husband, who flew into a rage. In the center of the island, there was a tree which gave light to the entire island, since the sun had yet to be created. He tore up this tree, creating a huge hole in the middle of the island. Curiously, the woman peered into the hole. Far below, she could see the waters that covered the earth. At that moment, her husband pushed her. She fell through the hole, tumbling towards the waters below. Water animals already existed on the earth, so far below the floating island, two birds saw the sky woman fall. Just before she reached the waters, they caught her on their backs and brought her to the other animals. Determined to help the woman, they dove into the water to get the mud from the bottom of the seas. One after another, the animals tried and failed. Finally, Little Toad tried, and when he reappeared, his mouth was full of mud. The animals took it and spread it on the back of Big Turtle. The mud began to grow and grow and grow until it became the size of North America. Then the woman stepped onto the land. She sprinkled the dust into the air and created stars. Then she created the moon and sun. The sky woman gave birth to twin sons. She named one Sapling. He grew to be kind and gentle. She named the other Flint, and his heart was cold as his name. They grew quickly and began filling the earth with their creations. Sapling created what is good. He made animals that are useful to humans. He made rivers that went two ways.
Funny, the word for flint, right, in the Iroquoian tongue is Mohican. Didn't he say I would come in the Mohican? The word for flint in the Flint people is Mohican. It's crazy, right? Iroquoian, this is just stuff we bringing out. And by the way, the Iroquois is not their name. The Iroquois is the French iteration of the Algonquin word Iraqui. The Algonquin is the Aboriginal American. The Iroquois have been here for a while, right? Your Iroquois, I would equate them to your northern Inca, right? A true warrior-like people. They would be the Romans of the West, right? Well, either way, the word Iroquois is the way the French say the Algonquin word Iraqui. Iraqui means raw meat eater. That's what it means. It means raw meat eater, but it also has a connotation towards cannibalism. So to prove who was here first, the people who have the oldest dialect would call the people what they called them, and the name would stick, right? So how does an Iroquoian people who speak Iroquoian based languages, right? How do they get an Algonquin name? That's because when they got here, our forefathers was already here and named them by what they did, right? Iroqui is an adjective and describes what the people did. Okay? So it is the French attestation. Iroquois is the French attestation of the Paleo-Algonquin word Iraqi, which means raw meat eater. And when we look into northern Siberia, from the Aleuts to the Inuits, they still today kill their stock and eat it raw, dipping the meat in the blood and eating it right out the carcass. That is still Aboriginal, Aleutin, Northern Native American heritage, also with the Northern Siberians, Mongoloidal stocks, and also with the Iroquois, right? So when the Iroquois would have got to North America, me and your fathers would have been like, who is y'all niggas? You dig what I'm talking about? We was already there. You know what I mean? But remember, who didn't we take in? Think about it. Your mama ain't turned down damn kid that was ever hungry in the hood. If they came to the house, your mama, and they was hungry, your mama gave them a plate. How do I know that your mama gave them a plate? Because your mama is my mama. This is our culture. This is what we do. We take in the babies. We don't kick them out on the street. This is what we do. So I just wanted y'all to know that Iroquois or Iraqi means raw meat eater. It was a observation that the ancient Algonquins made of the Haudennashanee or the Iroquois, right? The French here are saying Iraqi, they say Iroquois. Ta-da! In English, it just is. You dig what I'm talking about? This is why it's an indigenous word that's based in French, because the French are repeating the Algonquin word. I just wanted to get that out. You dig what I'm talking about, to let you know that even these ancient tribes are Johnny-come-latelys compared to the great Ahouans of America, the true natives, the true indigenous of America. Ahouan, copper color, brown skin. You dig what I'm saying? This is not about racism, right? This is about regaining nationality, regaining heritage, regaining culture, and establishing a ethnicity, because the ethnicity of the quote unquote Negro of America is that he is indigenous to America. Right? It's different. Owaski different.
And into these he put fish without bones. He made plants that people could eat easily. If he was able to do all the work himself, there would be no suffering in the world. Flint destroyed much of Sapling's work and created all that is bad. He made rivers flow only in one direction. He puts bones in the fish and thorns on berry bushes. He created winter, but Sapling gave it life
And
so that it could move to give way
and
to spring.
also, this story shouldn't sound different to you. The two twin sons of light being birthed at the ends of the world. Remember, even in Owaski book of cosmogony, I made the earth at one time was a hot molten fire, and it glowed at the ends. These are ancient allegorical tales that the Algonquins told to the Iroquois. This is why the Iroquoian stories are always anthropomorphized. It's birds talking and fish talking, and when you actually hear the Algonquin story, it's basically word for word what's in Owaspy. And there ain't no spooky nothing. You dig what I'm talking about? They saying, yeah, God did some things, but God is a man, your brother. You dig what I'm saying? So remember the story, why their story is anthropomorphized, because they didn't have a written language at the time. This is why they have this wampum, what they're calling wampum, right? As it tells a story, right? It tells a story, but you got to know how to read it, right? It's based in mathematics too. This is the dope part about the Iroquois. This is why Jaja say I'm going to reveal that I did this 6,000 years ago and put a prophecy on it. Now dudes like Cosmon in 2024 are bringing it out because I told them it's going to be there. It's different.
He created monsters, which his brother drove beneath the earth.
Yeah, but this is why they have the anthropomorphic stories. The Iroquois have the fantastical, mystical, magical stuff, right? Fish talking and all that stuff, right? When the Algonquin-based tales, you talk about humans doing things, right? Humans may have interacted with the spirit, but this is a man. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference. So we can tell that the Algonquin tale is older, and they're telling it to a people in allegory because they wouldn't have been able to get it had you just plainly said it. So they put it in story so where they can remember it.
Eventually, Sapling and Flint decided to fight.
It's another reason why we all got the same stories.
Till one conquered the other. Neither was able to win at first, but finally Flint was beaten. Because he was a god, Flint could not die, so he was forced to live on Big Turtle's back. Occasionally his anger is felt in the form of a volcano.
Oh, he's fast. Oh, he's cooking.
Make you look.
That was one of many versions of the Iroquois creation myth, being an oral culture that has been around for a very, very long time. It's difficult to
let's
find.
run it back just a little bit.
In the form of a volcano. And Flint decided to fight till one conquered the other. Neither was able to win at first, but finally Flint was beaten. Because he was a god, Flint could not die, so he was forced to live on Big Turtle's back. Occasionally his anger is felt in the form of a volcano.
That was one of many versions of the Iroquois creation myth, being an oral culture that has been around for a very, very long time. It's difficult to find the definitive version, and you'll find that the details change drastically. But the story of a woman falling from heaven onto the earth
is not in Iroquois. The definitive version is in Algonquin. That's why you can't find it. You're not looking in the right place.
Being helped by animals and creating the earth that we know today is the essential core of the story, and you'll find that in pretty much every version. A couple things in this story that would be different from, creation myths that you might be familiar with is that the animals are actually helping the person. The person is not the creator of the animal. The person is not naming the animals. The animals are actually coming to the aid of the sky woman who fell to the earth. They are the saviors. They are the helpers in that case.
Notice.
Another thing is
just
that
like in Owaspy, the animals is already there when man got there.
That's habitable, that we would recognize was created because of an accident. You see that in some cultures, but in the ones that you, the listener, might be more familiar with, you probably have never seen that before. One theme that you probably did recognize is the good versus evil, and the fact that good and evil have some sort of eternal struggle, and that at times they're near equals, and who knows what the outcome is going to be. And that's personified in this story by a pair of twin brothers. And we see that a lot too, a pair of twin brothers, or just simply two
Facts. Those are in the Algonquin myths too.
brothers who come to fight one another. So Cain and Abel, Romulus and Remus, there's tons of examples. These shared elements, they're not because of transatlantic contact and the Iroquois had some brief relation with the ancient Romans or the Hebrews. These are just common themes that exist in human culture. Brothers fighting with one another, the ideas of good and evil, and those two struggling with one another, a husband and a wife not getting along. These are all things that are just common to humanity. And it's on the theme of humanity that we're going to pick up on who are the Iroquois. Of course, we're going to learn they didn't even refer to themselves as the Iroquois.
Fact.
Who are the Iroquois? Where do they come from? What are their deep roots? And we're going to learn about that today. Now, we're going to see a bunch of different terms, and I'm going to try to flesh out, even for myself, the differences between them. So Iroquois is going to be, we're going to use that in a cultural term. Those are going to be people who speak an Iroquoian language. But the term Iroquois itself is not a term that they would have used. It's a name put upon them.
See, it's a name applied to them, but who applied it to them? Today and anciently is the question.
So we've also heard of the Five Nations, the Iroquois Confederacy, and the Haudennashanee. Now, the Five Nations is a political term. There are 5 different tribes, which are nations, that are confederated with one another. They're the Iroquois Confederation. And
see the tribes represented right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the screen. Hope everybody can see my the stylus. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a representation of the Haudennashanee, or the people of the Longhouse, the Iroquois Confederation. Let's keep going. Remember, this is a name applied to them. The Iroquois is an adjective. It's a descriptive term. Let's see, does it come from the French through the Algonquins? Let's see.
Then their term for it is Haudennashanee, or Haudennashanee. I'm still working on the pronunciation. Now that means people of the Longhouse. So people of the Longhouse, it's symbolic. You have these 5 nations. They are more or less in a straight line across what is modern day New York State. And it makes the rough shape of a longhouse. And together they're a family, just like a longhouse would hold an extended family. So the Haudennashanee, or the 5 Nations, or the Confederacy, that is a political and cultural term describing those tribes who have come together to make this political union. But the term Iroquois in general just means I'm going to use it to mean anyone inside of this Iroquois cultural sphere who spoke an Iroquoian language, which is going to be much larger than you probably would think at first.
Right.
So you hear Iroquois, you think of the 5 Nations. But before the Europeans moved into the area, the 5 Nations probably represented a minority of the Iroquoian people, the people who spoke Iroquois languages. And there's lots of them. There's the Wenro, the Erie, the Huron, the big Huron Confederation. And those are all...
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can do whatever you want.
The Huron
Iroquoian people, they spoke the language.
Hold on, let's be right and exact. The Huron are a Siouan people, or which means admix. So just depends on who you was raised with is your language. So you already got Algonquin people mixing with Iroquoian type people. You dig what I'm saying? Creating what you would call Siouan or Huron. They many of the Sioux don't like to be called actually Sioux because it means snake in Iroquois, right? So they don't like to be called it. They're actually Hurons, and many of them are purely Algonquin, Negroidal, and what we would call Mongoloidal Incan types, right? That's not necessarily what you would call a Siberian or a Chinese. You know what I mean? A lot of this is genetic flow has been proven to come from Southeastern Asia, right? And these people types mixed in with Europeans also, let's not forget today, they mixed in with a great amount of European admixture, become your modern day Eurasians for the most part. But they got that Negroido, Ahuan, Shemitic, Algonquin, Iroquoian, Guatamian, Negroido mixing them too from right here, from the Indians. This is why the Indians are always mixed up with the Negroes and been misnomered as Negroes. When we know Negroes are Africans, that's because the indigenous American looks like an African. He doesn't look like a Chinese man. Not that the Negro doesn't produce the epicampic fold, because he does. He doesn't need any admixture to produce it. You see what I'm saying? And he produces every skin color. So we got to get over skin color, because that doesn't prove ethnicity. Just like today, there are Africans who are white. Leave it alone. They've been there hundreds of years. And I purport are the Africans who were caught in the slave trade, brought over here to the Americas. Many of them indentured. The African is the white guy. The European is the black guy. They told the story in reverse. Anyways, let's get back to some of this. We just wanted to clear that up. You dig what I'm saying? Stay on point.
Very similar ways of building their villages, shared similar clan systems and religious practices. So it's very hard to wrestle with these terms, but I think it'll become clear as we go on. So the first question I want to tackle is the origin of the Iroquoian people. Where did they come from? If you look at a map of Native American tribes around the time of 1450, the best they can figure it, or 1600, it actually doesn't matter on the year, because you'll see something. You'll see that there are these Iroquoian people. So that includes the 5 nations and all their related brethren who they may or may not get along with. And then surrounding them on 3 sides are Algonquin people or Algonquin people. I'm more comfortable with Algonquin. That's what I grew up with. So I'm probably going to use that. And if I offend anyone, I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. It's Algonquin. So it's kind of an anomaly that you have these Iroquoian people right here, and then they're completely surrounded by this group of people who speak a completely unrelated language. They're not related even remotely. Okay,
now,
there's probably some shared language back and forth just because of proximity.
What happens when those genetics mix between the Algonquins and the Iroquois? You get your Lakota, you get your Dakota, you get your Neutrals, you get your Onondagas, you get your Ojibways. You get your Ottawas, your Ocontos, your Miamis. This is what you get. You get a Osceola, you get a Pontiac, a Negroido native, right? Many of them spoke multiple languages, but just depends on, like, for instance, if your mother was let's just say Mohegan, right? Even let's just say, and you can't marry in your tribe, bro. That's your family. So whether she could marry you off to somebody in the Iroquois. You could be Seneca or, some other tribe and still be Iroquoian, right? And she marry you off to that girl. Your child, right, is whatever your mama is. The child is what the mother is, right? So even though you from the Mohegan tribe, your child gonna be from Seneca because the mama is from Seneca. You see what I'm saying? And they could be Iroquois like that. But you got to remember your Cherokees are Iroquois. Your Aniawea are Cherokees, speak a Iroquoian based language. Many of the Yamasee, Iroquoian. You dig what I'm talking? Even though we know that is a conglomerate group, right? Who goes on to become another even bigger confederacy, right? Called the Creeks. You see what I'm saying? So we just want to be right and exact with this history. Let's get it out here, though. But my man is breaking it down, man. As a matter of fact, hold on. As a matter of fact, let's give bro some love. This is the Other States of America history. The Other States of America history podcast, man. Give it up for this brother, man. He is being honest. He's telling what he knows. You dig what I'm talking about? Creating great content. You dig what I'm saying? And you got to remember, like he's saying, these are precursors to what we later on become to know as the 5 tribes, but these aren't what we know today as the 5 tribes. Pay attention. This 1600s. We starting in the 1400s. So up into the 1600s. Watch this. Let's keep going.
Root of both of those family trees are not connected. So historians and linguists and everyone else in the field who would be interested in this, it's kind of strange. You look at a map and you go, how did they start there and they were overwhelmed? Did they push their way into this area, the Western New York, Central New York? How did they get to this area and then were surrounded by people who seemingly had no relation to them? It's kind of a mystery. So we're going to look at the origins of the Iroquois people, and we're going to do that right now. So like I promised, that term Iroquois, we're going to talk about that. It originally probably came from the Algonquin people, who are a bunch of different tribes, and that's just a general term too. But the Algonquin people seem to have been the ones who named the group we call the Iroquois. Because in their language, it means something like snake.
Didn't I just tell you that? Right? Didn't I just tell you that the Algonquins, right, called them Iroqouis, which means raw meat eater, or like I said, can hint towards cannibalism. And it's funny that the hero, the cultural hero, number 1 of the Iroquois is a cannibal. Did y'all know that? The number 1 hero of the Iroquois, whose name is Hiawatha, right, is a cannibal from the Mohegan tribe. Shout out to the Mohegans. I got some of that in my blood. I got Mohegan. It's Mohican and Mohegan. They're not the same thing. You dig what I'm talking about? But shout out to all the people who believe in the Great Spirit. You dig what I'm talking about? No, but these are your precursors to your 5 so-called civilized tribes. And a lot of what's going on ain't really civil.
People are red adder snake people. It has a negative connotation to it, because as we're going to see, the Algonquin and the Iroquois don't always get along. And that's a generalization, because there's tons of exceptions to that. So I've already proved myself a liar. But so that term Iroquois is already coming from somewhere else. But
right, it's the Algonquin word, Iraqi, right, for the cultural practice of the Haudennashanee.
That's the origin of it. It's probably Algonquin, and then it was translated into the French, and then of course the English and the Dutch who moved in adopted the term from the French. That's probably how that came about, and there's some debate there. Among the various accounts by all the different Iroquois people who have written down their belief or their tradition of where the Iroquois people came from or how they came about, there's a lot of differences. And I would hazard to say there isn't one official story. It seems to be there is a group of people who believe that, it's a religious idea that the people sprouted up from the earth, and that where they sprouted up was exactly where their tribes lived. And so they are a part of that land, and the land is part of them. It's a very harmonious and interesting idea that you're tied to the earth so much you actually sprang from the earth at some point. Well, your people did. And then there's another strain of tradition that says that the Iroquois came from far out west, even maybe on the other side of the Mississippi River. This tradition claims that the Iroquois started off near the Pawnee, and then they moved up the Mississippi, up the Ohio River Valley, into Pennsylvania, into southern New York, northern New York, and then they were subjugated by the Adirondack.
Didn't I call them
Algonquin tribe? So
Northern
the name
Inca?
Adirondack for the mountains. You learn something. There you go. Eventually, they were able to throw off the Adirondack, and that's how they pretty much got to where they were today, the places they were settling in, the areas they were mastering. I found other Native American sources that put the origin somewhere else. Some Mohawk elders claim that the Iroquois originally came from the Southwest, the American Southwest, and that the Hopi are their distant cousins.
I believe that's true. Because even though the Hopi are by practice
that's drastically different.
What I'm talking about, drastically different people. Like they're saying but you can look at many of the Hopi and then look at many of the Haudennashanee, and you can say, well, damn. You dig what I'm talking about? And that Iroquoian, got a little, they can speak together, with that, that mixed tongue, that Hopi tongue that they got. You dig what I'm talking about? Because it's not Muskogee, it's not Algic, it's I know it's the Hopi tongue, but it has a name for it. I can't remember it off the top of my tongue, off the top of my head. But you know what I mean? This just shows the great admixture even amongst our own people. So if the Iroquois and the Hopis are far distant cousins from each other, right? Per their narrative, I'm just saying. I'm not saying that it is true or not. I'm just saying, per their narrative, they saying that's true. Look at the lifestyles. They totally different people. You dig what I'm talking about? One going to war, one giving prophecies and stuff. You dig what I'm talking about? They two total different types of people. You know what I mean? So you would, even if they was of the same people stock, by what they did and what they produced, you dig what I'm talking about? You would clearly say the Hopi are a different people than the Iroquois or the Haudennashanee. Even if they do have the same ethnicity, they don't have the same culture, right? So it could be true, like Dog saying, he just keeping it 100.
Than the other theories that we saw. Then they lived along the Mississippi, and that's probably where they became friends with the Pawnee. Then they moved down to Ohio, and then that's how they got to the.
I think they coming south and north. They just northern Incans, right? Remember, the same time we got the Xanca people down already in Peru, already in Chile, already in Bolivia, dominating that stuff. Copper color aboriginals, they called the Xanca. They were there before the Inca. The Incas are invaders. I believe the northern group of them are now today called later on in time, but the northern group go on in time to become what we call the Iroquois. Just what I just my thoughts on it. I'll go show later, but let's get back into some of the history.
The Northeast. And so we have these different stories that seem to conflict, and then some of them actually seem to just be more elaborate or go back further in time than other ones. So there's no consensus there. And like I said with the Iroquois people, they're not one people. I know I say that, but there are many different tribes, many different traditions, and we're talking about a span of hundreds of years. So there's going to be some discrepancies, and there's going to be a difference of opinion. But now let's look at the scholarly background here. Let's look at what linguists say, and archaeologists and historians and all those sorts of folks, anthropologists. Where did these Iroquois people come from? Or how did they come about, and how did they end up in this sea of Algonquin people? Early anthropological theories were kind of in line with the things the
Come up
Iroquois
the video, man.
felt
Share
about
the video,
themselves
man. Show
and
some
thought about
love,
their
man.
history.
Spread out there to
That
your,
the Iroquois came from somewhere along the
your
Mississippi
platforms,
River, and
man.
that's where they learned
Love
agriculture.
out there,
Because
everybody. Let's
compared
go.
to their Algonquin neighbors, the Iroquois were so much more into agriculture. They had vast stores of corn and whatnot, especially the Huron, who are an Iroquoian people, or in modern day Ontario, roughly. They took farming to such an extreme that they were called the storehouse of grain for the Algonquins. They would sell to the Algonquins. So early theories were thinking, well, they must have come from somewhere down south where agriculture was more practiced and not so much hunting and gathering. And then when the linguists get involved and they start breaking down the different Iroquoian language, the Mohawk, Oneida, Cayuga, Seneca, Onondaga, Tuscarora, and all the other ones who we don't typically think of part of the Iroquois people, found that basically the Iroquois languages are only separated by what they determine to be, around 1,000 years. So you go back 1,000 years, you end up with the proto-language, the original Iroquoian language that all the other ones are descended from. Now, 1,000 years is not a very long time at all.
You hear
English, which I'm assuming you speak because you're listening to me, and I'm.
Guess who comes on the scene 1,000 years ago too? The Inca. The Inca come on the scene the same time as your so-called Vikings, Eric the Red. These people coming in from the north, right? Also, you see a people in the south the same time. This is 1100, 1000, 1100, 1200 AD, right? Or CE, of the Common Era. This is only 1,000 years ago, y'all. They're just popping up on the scene. The root of their language pops up on the scene in the Americas. It's going to note, just keep in mind, it's going to show that there's at least 2 different people already here. Hundreds of years before there was a quote-unquote European here, right? This is why we got to look into our people. These are people too. Stop hating. Many of us got Aboriginal in our blood. We are Aboriginals, but many of us do got a native ancestor in there. This is where that little 2% come from. You dig what I'm talking about? And remember back then, many of them, first of all, you can look at the Iroquois even today and see they got the Negroid cut. That ain't even hard to see. Right? Even though they've been, practicing white supremacy. You dig what I'm saying? Genetically phasing out their own copper colored skin. Because remember, the Iroquois was copper colored. Dark brown. And these was our brothers for hundreds of years before a European got here, and then they traded on us. This is what happened. It was a whole government here, and we gave them these 5 tribal governments. We put it together for them, Algonquin. Because remember, they had to go to the Algonquin peacemaker. We just now revealing that it's the great Iwata of America, right? Remember, this is prophecy.
I'm speaking English. English is a Germanic language. It's distantly related to German and Danish and Dutch and all these other languages. But it goes back quite a bit further than 1,000 years before you get to that common root. Now, the Iroquoian language, most of them are mutually intelligible, which means if you can speak the one, you can pretty much understand the other. There might be a little bit of confusion, but it's a little more than an accent, basically.
Have you had your Hershey's?
The 8 Sleep Pod Cover. It's a liquid-cooled mattress topper that's clinically proven to give you better sleep. So let me tell you.
So that means that the distance between them is not that great. In 1984, a linguist named Marina Mithon, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, she reconstructed what that proto-language would have sounded like, at least of the northern Iroquois. Because here's a big secret. The Cherokee down south are also an Iroquoian people, but we'll get to that. She reconstructed this language, and she found that the shared vocabulary, the roots there, are mountainous in origin. So what she suggests is that the Iroquois people originally came up from Appalachia. They were up in the hills of Pennsylvania, or maybe even a little further south, and then the bulk of them went north into the Great Lakes region, New York, and
Ain't
up
that what
and
they
around
said?
the St. Lawrence, and then the Cherokee kind of found their way down south. That's what she suggests, and that kind of makes a lot of sense, especially if she can break apart the language and show, wow, at the root of this language is not a seafaring culture, not a valley dwelling culture, not one that's around rivers and lakes, but one that's up in the mountains.
They
So
had
this
a
theory believes
warrior
that
culture
around probably the 8th century AD or CE, whatever you want to use, these people that were living up in the mountains, up in near the Allegheny Plateau, around the areas like that in Pennsylvania and whatnot, that they slowly began to move north into what we now call like central and western New York and the southern parts of Canada around the Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence and all those areas. So this theory believes that the Iroquois moved in and by and large replaced or assimilated whoever was already living there or pushed them out. And there's some evidence to suggest this, because if you look at the Algonquin languages, the linguists have also noticed, well, geez, there's a split between the Eastern and the Central Algonquin languages, and these occur somewhere, they calculate, between 500 and 1000 AD. So right when the Iroquois would have moved into that little center spot that we talked about, they would have split off the Algonquin, and then the Algonquin languages would have diverged. So the linguists have evidence on both sides of the fence here that the Iroquois suddenly moved in at some point.
Happenstance? Y'all think that's just by happenstance? Right when Owaspy say you gotta move or you gonna die because escrow is happening, right? You're in the middle of, if you're in Europe, you're in the middle of a mini ice age in between 1014 or you might as well say 1050 to 1450 BC. You're in a mini ice age. Did you know that? If you didn't, you're not on our level yet. Don't come over here playing around talking crazy. Right? Right when you were supposed to be moving, because in Europe at the time, you're going through, let's just say, a mini ice age. But in the Americas, you're going through the worst droughts that ever hit the Americas, ever. Literally creating the places we know as Death Valley and all of this is those times. Right when you had to move, we see a people being injected from the south. The same time we see a people being injected from a Caribbean region down into South America, and those people become the Inca, displacing the people already there who had already built Sexe Ahuaman. And we already did the lesson who the Ahuans are. We know that they are the Negroes. Right? Everywhere in the world. Right? These are the primarily large copper-colored races. Right? So it's the same in the Americas. Just in the Americas, they're called Indians, Aboriginals, and now today, African Americans, just coloreds, people of color. They just keep misnomering you, so you never look below you. You always looking, chasing your nose in another country, but you never take grasp of really what's up under your feet. Let's get back to it.
And in the conversation, other types of scientists have chimed in, and they've pointed out that, geez, this northern migration seems to align with this medieval warming period to some respect. It's a little loose of a theory, but that could add to it too. So why did the Iroquois move north?
I ain't watched this. I just want y'all to know, I didn't watch this. This is me coming up off the dome, freestyling, spitting actually what I know. So it makes sense. He would be following, you know what I mean, seeing what I'm seeing. Right? To be able to be a teacher and you gonna call yourself a teacher, you gotta know what you talking about. And then just tell it plain. Be real. Don't put nothing extra on it. And just trust that the people you talking to are just intellectually honest and willing to learn as you are. And they'll make the decision up for themselves, but be honest. Give them the yays and the nays. And then say, look, which one you would choose? Which one did they choose? Was that a good decision? Bad decision. You got to judge it and weigh it all. We got to even do this with everything. You see what I'm saying? Let's get back to it.
Well, the environment was getting warmer. Living north made more sense. It was applicable to their way of life suddenly.
So they going through droughts throughout the West, Midwest, Rockies region, desert regions, all the way into Mexico, all the way into the Caribbean, right? We see a mass injection of people, one going north and one going south. Owaspy say, Creator created the Watamian to love to migrate north and south. We the only people who do that, the people of America.
The other wing of this debate is the in situ approach, the in situ theory. Now, you'll hear that term sometimes. You probably never heard it in your life. I barely have ever heard it. It just means in place. The in place theory that the Iroquois people, just as some of the Iroquois people claim, developed right in that general area where we would associate them with our history today. That they developed in Western New York, Central New York, parts of Ontario today. That's where they were found, and that's where they've lived for a very, very long time. That's the in situ theory. And there's some evidence to support the in situ theory. Now, moving on to archaeology, archaeologists are always digging up the evidence of cultures that existed in the past for which we don't have any written record of. We don't know what they called themselves, so we have to call them something. Well, in New York State, there was the Owasco culture. And I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. The Owasco culture. And that's a material culture. They dig up these things and they've named it the Owasco culture. Who knows what those people called themselves at that time? There are many who believe that the Owasco culture, around 1000 AD, would become the Iroquois that we know in the historical record. So there's the theory that they've just kind of always been there. And then there's other people who think, well, the Owasco culture only really came about after they migrated from the areas we talked about before. It's all very confusing. I promise this podcast will be more defined in the future, but we're dealing with prehistory before the written record. So it's all theories and conjecture here. All right. So the Owasco people it's thought that they became the Iroquois. They lived in the same places, had similar ways of building their villages from what we could tell from the existing archaeological record. That's a theory too. And that would align with those who believe that, hey, we've been living here a long time and we just kind of shot up here. So around the year 1000 to 1300 AD, we'll see the people moving away from rivers and onto hilltops. That's what the archaeological record shows. So they're getting away from the convenience of the water and they're moving up on the hills to protect themselves is the leading theory. And then all of a sudden we're seeing palisades, walls of poles being put up and ditches in front of those walls so that people fall into them. If they, charge the wall, they don't see the ditch, they fall into the ditch. Makes the wall seem higher because now you're in a ditch. So around this period, scientists think that there was a general time of aggressive warfare because people are literally changing where they live to protect themselves. And it's right after this period that the Europeans start to show up. Now, you might say to yourself, hey, how is it that archaeologists are able to determine what's an Algonquin site or what's an Iroquoian site? What would be the difference there? Because to the average American, it would all seem kind of like the same thing, just based on the assumptions you might have.
That's the mistake.
Well, an Iroquois site, we're going to see longhouses. Lots of longhouses packed close together. We'll see, like we talked about, palisades going around it, a semi-organized structure and a real sense of community. You could tell that this community was planned together. Whereas the example that you would find around where I live, around the Albany area, you'll find Mohican, who are an Algonquin people, and they'll have smaller huts closer to wigwam designs, and they're spread out, and the villages are much smaller, and they're more temporary, and they're close to the water, and there's less agricultural overall. So really, on the face of it, you might think, it's a Native American dwelling. But in reality, they're worlds apart. And even though we're pretty much in the same area, the Iroquois are living a completely different lifestyle. than the Algonquin people. And you could tell just based on the stumps that are left in the ground from the poles they drove into the ground. Their villages looked drastically different when you really get down to the planning of it. But now we're getting down to the real close nitty gritty. This is right before contact, right before Samuel de Champlain would come down from the north, or Henry Hudson would come up from the south, the Hudson River. So what's happening right before we have a written record? That little bit of darkness that we can't quite see into. What was there? What can we glean from it? Well, the archaeological record shows that the Mohawk were suddenly becoming a power in the region. It's shown that there are different types of Iroquois people who lived up near the St. Lawrence, and their pottery disappears from where they were, meaning something happened to them. And then those pottery designs are showing up in Mohawk sites, implying that captives were taken and they were carrying on their native pottery culture in the new culture. They were being assimilated slowly. So right before we have a written record, we know the Mohawk were starting to become a power in the region. And I know I promised you that I'd be more definite and there'd be less questions. But now we get to this other question. When did the Five Nations, the Iroquois Confederacy, the Haudennashanee, when did it start? This has been an issue of debate for a very long time. And it's very hard to nail down. There's one camp, well, there's a lot of different camps, but one says it developed before the Europeans showed up. And the Europeans had no influence on whatsoever. And then there's another camp that says, well, when the Europeans started moving into the Algonquin-controlled areas, it changed everything on this side of the continent and created the pressures that created the Confederacy. And then there's another camp that says it was the European influence that caused these Iroquois tribes to band together. But before we start arguing over which is the truth, what is more plausible, let's look at the actual story of the foundation of the Haudennashanee.
At the same time,
there was a long period of war, longer than any man's lifespan. The Iroquois were at each other's neck, tribe against tribe, brother against brother. The Five Nations were the Mohawk, the Oneidas, the Cayugas, the Senecas, and the Onondagas. Tribe fought with tribe, and in tribes, villages fought with villages, and in villages, family fought with family.
Now listen, do these sound like the same five civilized tribes you know today? No.
The Cayugas.
These are the
brother. There was a long period of war.
Before they were civilized. Understand, this is a whole nother people than the Eurasian stock. That's the Iroquois predate the Eurasians that are on many of the reservations today. They are older people. They're not old as the Algonquins. The Algonquins are the Aboriginals, but they are brothers. They come later. You dig what I'm talking about? To the Americas and migrate to the Americas, but they're not from the Americas. They've been over here a very long time, though. You know, I wouldn't say that. And they was here thousands of years before ever a white man got here, but we was here before that. You see what I'm saying? So it's a difference, right? But by this time, by the colonial times, by 1450s, right, the Iroquoian people, beyond just their warlike nature, you couldn't have separated them, culturally, from most Algonquins, other than the warlike nature of what they doing. You dig what I'm talking about? Because they more like, and it makes sense. Because I always say the Haudennashanee or the Iroquois are the Romans of the West. They live the same style, dress the same way, fight the same way. You dig what I'm saying? I think that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with contact between peoples. That is just a way of life that is practiced everywhere, right? That warrior lifestyle is practiced everywhere. It just in different areas shows itself differently, but nonetheless, this is the skill of killing men, right? So let's get back to it.
War, longer than any man's lifespan. The Iroquois were at each other's neck, tribe against tribe, brother against brother. The 5 nations were the Mohawk, the Oneidas, the Cayugas, the Senecas, and the Onondagas.
Them ain't the Cherokees, the Muskogees. You dig what I'm talking? You dig what I'm talking about? The Seminoles, you see what I'm saying? So right there, we know we talking about something before there was a 5 civilized tribe. Don't get it mistaken, right?
Tribe fought with tribe, and in tribes, villages fought with villages, and in villages, family fought with families, and even the families were fighting amongst themselves. Fear and hatred reigned in the land, and nobody was safe. On the opposite shores of the Great Lakes, among the Huron nation, lived a woman and her daughter. One night as the woman slept, she dreamt that her daughter had a son named Diganawida, who would bring a message of peace and power.
Diganawida. Iwita. Iwita. Iwata. Diganawata. Diganawata. Iwata. Remember, this is the Iroquois story, right? It's an Iroquois story, but who they go get saved by? Watch this.
Nation lived a woman and her daughter. There was a long period of war, longer than any man's lifespan. The Iroquois were at each other's neck, tribe against tribe, brother against brother. The 5 nations were the Mohawk, the Oneidas, the Cayugas, the Senecas, and the Onondagas. Tribe fought with tribe, and in tribes, villages fought with villages, and in villages, family fought with families, and even the families were fighting amongst themselves. Fear and hatred reigned in the land, and nobody was safe. On the opposite shores of the Great Lakes, among the Huron nation, lived a woman and her daughter. One night as the woman slept, she dreamt that her daughter had a son named Diganawida, who would bring a message of peace and power from the chief of the great sky spirits to all the warring nations across the waters. And sure enough, the dream came about. A son was born to her daughter, and they called him Diganawida. When he had grown to be a man, he told them of his desire to sail across the water and bring his message of peace and power to the 5 fighting tribes. His mother and grandmother consented, and Diganawida stepped into a canoe of white stone and rowed across the lake. When the people saw him floating in a boat made of stone, they were filled with wonder, and when they heard what he had to say, they became willing to abandon their weapons and adopt peaceful ways. Diganawida didn't stay in any place for long.
Notice they ain't talking about Hiawatha. They're talking about Diganawida. They're talking about Diganawida, right? This is a guy before Hiawatha. Watch this. Just notice that during the story.
Always moving eastward, telling the people his message of hope. One day he reached the Mohawk tribe, whose chief was Hiawatha.
Notice he said he's moving eastward, so that means he's coming from the west.
Hiawatha was a fierce cannibal, renowned for being the best warrior in the land. But recently he had felt unable to fight and could not sleep at nights. I come with good place for long. He traveled from one village to the next, always moving eastward, telling the people his message of hope. One day he reached the Mohawk tribe, whose chief was Hiawatha. Hiawatha was a fierce cannibal, renowned for being the best warrior in the land. But recently he had felt unable to fight and could not sleep at nights. I come with good tidings from the chief of the sky spirits. Diganawida said, fighting must cease in the land. The good spirit never intended that blood should flow between human beings. But if we do not fight, one man objected, we will be killed by our neighboring tribes. The neighboring tribes have already accepted my message of peace, said Diganawida, and Hiawatha's tribe then...
Right there, let me ask the question before we go any further, y'all. I know it's before we go any further. Seeing how the Mohawk and the Iroquois cultural lifestyle of war, he said, look, if I don't go to war, they're going to war against me and they're going to try to kill. It is what it is. Right? During living that way, right? If you agree that that is not a faithist lifestyle, hit me with a 1 in the chat. Hit me with a 1 in the chat. Is that the way of a faithist? Is that Emet the Shiva? Is that not killing a weaker nation? Is that, not going to war, abjuring war, you know what I mean, treating your brother like you want to be treated. That's not really that, right? So we can see by their cultural lifestyle that these people are a warrior group, even though they believe in the Great Spirit, right? They believe in the Great Spirit, but like they said, they banging on each other in the clans and the tribes and in their own families. They everybody is against each other. They wiping themselves out, right? So from the Hurons, what they call the Hurons, right? A prophet was born, right? They came to bring in the peacemaker, right? The Ganawida, right? Remember, this is the Iroquoian version of the story. So they saying, and you must know this, even though some of the Hurons spoke Iroquoian languages, the Iroquois and the Hurons were dire enemies. Don't never get it twisted. They did not like each other, right? No, they was not cool. Only reason some of the Hurons spoke Iroquoian-based languages because they had got forced assimilated, bred into. You dig what I'm talking about? Through conquering raids that the Iroquois used to do. I'm telling you, they lived a different lifestyle. They just go take people and make them part of the tribe. If you can make it, you can be Iroquois. Other than that, we wiping. Y'all got to get up out of here either way. They the Romans. They just in America. This is crazy. Right? You know this ain't a faithless lifestyle, so they got to get it though. They got to understand it. So every time something happens, it's a man coming to fix it. Right? We don't never see the cause. We always see the man. It's a man coming to do it. Ain't no spook in the sky coming to do nothing. Even you won't see that work. Right? But those in touch and tapped in, they do. Right? And this why these stories, right? How did this warrior people become the Haudennashanee, the people of the Longhouse? They're not even the Longhouse people yet. They don't have this technology yet. These your TP people. This is why it's so important to show you the Longhouses right here and the peace tree, right? Which obviously is some type of cedar, right? It's a Christmas tree of some type, evergreen. But this is why. This is also a cultural switch, right? They didn't have the long houses the whole time they was moving up north for a couple hundred years. No. They got that when they met the peacemaker. He would have all the knowledge. You even killing your mom and your dad. So we know you ain't the smartest, sharpest knife in the drawer. So where are you getting all this knowledge from? It come at this time when you become peaceful. Watch this.
When the time came for Daganawida to leave, he gave Hiawatha a parting piece of advice. "There is one I wish to warn you of," he said. "He is the chief of the Onondagas who lives above the lake. He will not listen to my words and has great powers to use against those who do." So saying, he left for the east. Hiawatha had 3 daughters, and in the months ensuing Daganawida's departure, they all died mysteriously. Suspecting the evil man he had been warned of, and filled with grief, Hiawatha abandoned his tribe and his home, and left to find Daganawida. After a long and difficult journey, he found him, and Daganawida's wise and kind words of consolation succeeded in dispelling his grief. They spent many days together, the end of which...
Notice it's Daganawida who's soothing, not Hiawatha, right? The man from the Seneca tribe and took out 3 of Hiawatha children. Hiawatha ain't trying to talk. Remember, he already a warrior, but this dude, he got some extra juju on it. You dig what I'm talking about? He got some extra juju with it, right? So they needed the peacemaker to come in there and make peace with dog. All right, let's run it back. Let's run it back just a little bit. We're gonna run it back.
With good tidings from the chief of the sky spirits, Daganoweda said, "Fighting must cease in the land. The good spirit never intended that blood should flow between human beings. But if we do not fight," one man objected, "we will be killed by our neighboring tribes." "The neighboring tribes have already accepted my message of peace," said Daganoweda, and Hiawatha's tribe then accepted his message as well. When the time came for Daganoweda to leave, he gave Hiawatha a parting piece of advice. "There is one I wish to warn you of," he said. "He is the chief of the Onondagas who lives above the lake. He will not listen to my words and has great powers to use against those who do." So saying, he left for the east. Hiawatha had 3 daughters, and in the months ensuing Daganoweda's departure, they all died mysteriously. Suspecting the evil man he had been warned of, and filled with grief, Hiawatha abandoned his tribe and his home, and left to find Daganoweda. After a long and difficult journey, he found him, and Daganoweda's wise and kind words of consolation succeeded in dispelling his grief. They spent many days together, the end of which Hiawatha pledged to help Daganoweda bring the tidings of peace to the 5 tribes.
You'll never forget an anniversary when it's easy to get flowers this fresh.
Yeah. Come on with it.
They parted ways and did not meet again until there was only one man left who had not accepted their message of peace and power, the evil chief of the Onondaga. They journeyed to this mountain together, and they found him in a cave above the lake. Hiawatha was shocked to see he was more of a monster than a man, with a hideous face and serpents entwined in his hair. They talked to him for a long time, and after many hours of discussion and persuasion, he began to smile.
I think in the story, what they're actually describing is that they could see the Druja literally off him, and you dig what I'm talking about. Probably how they represented themselves to Hiawatha, and hence the peacemaker probably were as snakes. All right, just a different point of view.
"I will accept your plan of peace," he said. His face lost all traces of ugliness, and Hiawatha helped him to comb the serpents out of his hair. They turned down the mountain where all the tribes were gathered and began a great meeting. Daganoweda proposed that they would form one nation and told them the laws they should follow, which became their constitution. They would be the Haudennashanee nation, later known as the Iroqouis Confederacy. And when the meeting was over, they buried their weapons. Daganoweda planted a tree above, and the tree became known as the Tree of Peace. Daganoweda then left, leaving Hiawatha in his place.
If you like that story, consider going to longhousepodcast.com. I believe the name of the podcast.
Actually, I'll drop a link to it. I'll go find this link. I'll drop it in there. The actual story is they play into the ego of the great Onondaga chief, right? And they cut a deal with him, right? Because the Onondaga chief, even though he wasn't, he was the grand war chief. The Onondagas was the big warriors. They was the big homies of the crew, right? So they had a loose confederation, but it wasn't. They was all against each other. And he was just the one that was putting in the most work, right? So in the real story, the full story, the peacemaker they both play into the ego, right? Giving him the big man status, saying you'll be we'll make the Onondagas the head of the warrior tribes over everybody. Though you got to protect everybody, right? And you'll be like the big war chief. So they played into his ego, and he bought it, right? And so it's like a little more intrigue, and in the real telling of the story, in the full telling, but the story as is represented is correct. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah, this is officially the Iroquois History and Legends podcast. You might be able to find that on some streaming service. Their very first episode is a retelling of that story from a first-person point of view, and I believe it shifts a little bit, and it's just fantastic. I couldn't come close to copying it, so I went with the more traditional route, but I really recommend listening to that version because it really is good storytelling, and I'm not sure who runs those podcasts or who puts that stuff together, but it's just fantastic. So after listening to that story, I imagine you as the listener, you see similar archetypical characters from other cultures you might be familiar with. Daganawida is a Merlin-like figure. He's powerful. There's lots of other stories of him doing all sorts of fantastic things to woo people over to the side of peace. He's very much like a Merlin or even a John the Baptist because he's coming before this great leader, and they know each other and they have this relationship, but he's the older, wiser one. And then Hiawatha himself is like a Jesus character in that he's going to lead the way. He's going to be the one to solidify this great peace. Other leaders I could think of, he's like Moses or even a King David, right? He's some sort of
or even like James the Just. Shout out to the first century Messianics. You dig what I'm talking about? All the Essenes, the Nazarenes, you dig what I'm talking about? Peace to all the righteous gods and Nirvanian goddesses, man. Creator gang. You dig what I'm talking about? This creator of nothing over here, man. We just getting down into the Iroquois Confederacy. You dig what I'm talking about? Showing their impact in the Americas and then showing how they flow in Owaspy.
Foundational leader, and that's just from the Judeo-Christian background. If we move to other cultures, ancient Greece, each city-state, some demigod was the founder of the city-state, and there's a great tale about how this guy grew up and did all these feats and then founded a city. Hiawatha is the founder, isn't he? And the message he brings is peace. He started out as a cannibal, as they say, and vengeful, and other tales, not a good guy. And he is brought around. And then the two of them go off and they bring around this evil Onondaga chief with snakes in his hair and everything.
Right. So the peacemaker showed a warrior how to get back right. It's the same thing happening today. It's the balancing of that knowledge, high spirituality, and high physicality all at the same time. This is the Cosmon era, y'all. This is why I keep telling y'all to the gangsters. You dig what I'm talking about? Pimps, players, hustlers, ballers, shot callers, all of us. I'm telling you, it's the way to come on back, man. Get right. But you got to do it for your people, man. You got to, and then you got to get with other people who willing to do something good for somebody else. That's how it become powerful. Man, because I'm telling you, 4 can do it better than 1. But 400 can do it better than 40. But 4,000 can do it better than 400. You see what I'm saying? When it start to move like that, man, it's an unstoppable thing. It's a juggernaut at that point. And that is what faithism is today. It's leading it's branching off. You see the light branching off other whole movements, like the Aboriginal movement. This is why Pan-African died, man. Everything, the understanding is higher. Who cares, man? There's something bigger than being African. There's something bigger than being Indian. Right? Are you good? First of all, are you are you in ascension or are you in declension? Let's talk about that.
So the message really, I mean, if you branch it off from the creation story, that there's good and evil, the message is really good can not only triumph over evil, good can turn evil back into good. Good will prevail and good can absorb the bad. And it's a really great message. And I often wonder, let's say the old world doesn't exist, it's just the new world, just the Americas. What would have happened if
Is this not faithism in a nutshell? Huh? You get rid of that whole idea that you're about to be burning in hell forever. No, you got to work. You spilt this Kool-Aid. You gonna clean it up. That's faithism. I'm telling y'all, we've been doing this forever.
The Haudennashanee were just left.
Hey, Q agent State Farm.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut. It's neighbor.
That's what I said. Neighbor.
Getting closer.
To their own devices, and then different cultures in like Mesoamerica, like the Aztecs, their own, throughout time, and allowed to develop on their own. What would happen when those two cultures came to clash with one another? What interesting
you know what?
Works of literature and ideas and social structures would have developed. Really, really interesting stuff. And there's really no answer. It's just something you can play out in your head. One of the laws that were put in place right away was the banning of blood feuds. And that's a great sounding word, blood feuds. But what does that mean in the context? Well, a blood feud is basically you kill my brother, I kill your brother. Well, now I've killed your brother, so now you're going to seek revenge. You're going to come back here, and you're going to kill, my cousin. And it goes back and forth, and one murder can just turn into an all-out war. The most recent American example that a lot of people would know would be the feud between the Hatfields and the McCoys, which started over a contested pig. And it's the same principle. You have hurt my family, I will hurt your family. There's no ending to that. It's a blood feud. And we see this in a lot of tribal societies going back through time. It's in a lot of Middle Eastern societies. A couple thousand years ago, you'll see these feuds that start over a very small incident, turn into this big deal. You'll see it in even medieval Italy, where people are actually banished from towns after murders. It even features in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which isn't, exactly accurately Italian, but one of their solutions was to just banish the person who committed the murder so that there couldn't be another murder and another murder and another murder. You break the chain. And in the Iroquois Confederacy, banning those blood feuds meant that in between the tribes that agreed to it, you wouldn't have this escalation, this domestic war on the local home front. Really smart idea. Really good way to handle that, because it's a very difficult situation. How do you tell a brother not to avenge the death of his brother? How do you get that through to their heads? And yet somehow in the Iroquois Confederacy, in the Haudennashanee, it worked, and that's the foundation to the stability that would allow them to turn outward. Scholars don't doubt that Hiawatha and these other figures were actual historical people. There's no doubt there. They definitely did exist. So the question people debate is, when did all these events occur? When did the League come together, the Haudennashanee? And that's been debated back and forth for a very long time. The earliest native sources.
Now, that's the dope part about old Wasp. See, we can put this stuff on them. See, we know that this is happening at two different times. Iwata is back during the 23rd arc cycle after the creation of man. Let's get to, hold on, let me show y'all. Let me grab a little visual real quick. Let me see if I can go in here and grab one of these time charts real quick. Okay. Okay. Hold on 1 second, y'all. See, this the dope part about our Waspy. Right? We understand where we are historically. This is the timetables of prophecy, right? This is where we are today, right here. 176 years. This is the 25th arc cycle, or the 25th 3,000 year period since what? The very first one right here called Wayne, and where what? Modern men was created, and able in your Bible, right? These are thinking men with, they call them able because they had spiritual ability. Before that, these is beast man, right? And he would need to be to even survive during this era. This is crazy. I don't even know. But we are in the 25th, right? So you go to first, called Juan, right? We are in the 25th 3,000-year arc cycle, right? The first one is called Juan. Here is the 25th, right here, 3,000-year period between 1848 and 4848 CE, Common Era, right? Beginning the first year of the Cosmon Era. Right? Under the auspices of the goddess, not God, goddess, Shesivi Antithotis, right? And that is the present time, the Cosmon Era, right? So we're 176 years, or 2024, into the Cosmon Era, or 72,176 years after the time of the creation of man. But where we talking about is right here, 3953 BC. This is where Iwata is first laying it down. This is the first peacemaker. There's another peacemaker in 1050-ish to 1450 AD. Two different people, the Ganawida and the peacemaker. That's happening back here, right? The real Iwata, right? The peacemaker and that stuff is all happening in the 24th arc cycle, leading up to 1848. So it was prophesied that this stuff was going to happen to the people, right? So we know right where we at. We in between 3953 BC and 1440 AD, right? This is when the prophecy was given way back here, that what got fulfilled by the Incas, Mayans, and Aztecs, way down here in the 24th arc cycle, right? So look, 23rd arc cycle, 2,400 year span of time, from 3953 BC to 1553 BC. The 25th arc cycle is a 3,400 year span of time, from 1553 BC. This is the time of Moses. This is the time of all the expulsion, the expulsion of the Hikakasu. All that happened right here, 1553 BC. New kingdom started 1550 BC with almost the first. So this is a 3,400 years between 1500 BC and 1848 AD, called the Ark of Bond, right? So the prophecy was given way back here in Spita, right? Completed in Bond before the Ark of Cosmon even started, right? Remember they said 1450 to 1850? Watch. All right. Let me show you something. Let's get into this real quick. Right? Let's get into this. OWASP studying faithism, worshipers of the Great Spirit in Gautama. Right? Gautama is the ancient cosmological name for North America, or all the Americas, right? But North America is north of Gautama. Gautama means, hold on one second. Hold on. Let me get in this online thing real quick. Let me open up another OWASP. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. Just want to get into a little bit of the definition. Of the word Gautama from Owaski itself. Right? Hold on 1 second. All right. Make sure we can see this. Gautama. Let me blow it up a little bit. Gautama, the cosmological name of America. Literally, the last spirit foundation, the last revelation, sometimes spelled Gautama. Right? Well, let's do. Let's get back to this. All right. So the worshipers of the Great Spirit, who we know are the Indians, right? In America, Gautama, the most, well, not the most ancient name, but the ancient cosmological name. Right? Gautama, particularly North Gautama or North America, has been ordained from the very beginning of man's inhabitation of the earth to be the place where the Creator's kingdom on earth would be established, even though it has taken more than 72,000 years to reach the time when this would occur. Those who will populate the Creator's kingdoms will be spiritually prepared for living in harmony with his heavenly kingdoms. This is from the book of Owaski, the book of Satantes, the very first god during the very first arc cycle. So this is the very first 3,000 years of man's existence as a thinking upright man. And Tori, right? The most ancient name of America, Tori, was the land that the angels later called North Gautama, North America, signifying the meeting of the nations and the dawn of Cosmos. So God, Satantes, came down out of the ship and stood on the land, and a light of Ethereal flame descended upon him. And the Creator spoke out of the light, saying, "Hear me, O son, I have brought you here to this land, which is the last of the circle, even as Waga or Pan was the first. Behold, when the earth is circumscribed by those who choose me, the Creator, in 1849, we know that this happened, right? The proof of this revelation is the finding of gold in California and the 49ers and the gold rush, right? Behold, when the earth is circumscribed with those who choose me, right? I will come here, right, to the Americas, to North America, with a great awakening light, right? We see what start happening. The whole spiritualist movement come up out of nowhere, right? Now on this land in North America, I will finish the dominions of gods and lords on earth. Look at your religions. Look at the churches we grew up in. They are shambles of themselves. Huh? How many preachers leaving? Upright, just leaving Christianity, like, yo, right? They coming into this new information and you know, they're being convicted. See, this is why Israel and Iran, this is why remember, man is always inspired, and what you're actually seeing when you look at a situation like Israel and Iran, you're watching the death throes of religion. You're watching the final parrying moves of the false gods. Christ against Allah. That's what it is. As on earth, so below. So above. As on earth, so above. As above, so below. That is a truthism. On this land, in America, I will finish the dominions of gods. I'm going to put religion down. There won't be no more man worship. Even as it was begun in the sunken continent in the Waga, or Pan, in the Pacific, which is now the floor of the Pacific. Through you and your lords, I will now lay the foundation for my kingdoms. On this land in America, I will raise up a people. Mind you, this is in the first 3,000 years of man's existence on the planet. Remember the time we're talking about. He's telling him, I'm going to raise up a people who shall be the fulfilling of that which the Ions professed in Pan, before what you would call Lemuria, what you would understand as Atlantis, is actually a sunken continent, which is now the floor. That place is called Pan, right? That would be your motherland, but this is your fatherland. Look. For my chosen shall come out boldly. Who are the people standing by the Creator today? What they look like? Where they at? He said, I am. Remember, this is in the first 3,000 years of man's existence. I'm talking about man like me and you. 72,176 years ago, it's a dude standing somewhere like South Carolina looking at the Rockies, and Jaja is speaking to him like, look, dog, I'm going to raise up a people on this land that's going to come in 2024. 107. He actually said 159 years into the Cosmos era. That's 2007. Guess who started putting stuff out online in 2007? Got the Owaspy in 2007. Or he had it in 2006. He had it before that. You dig what I'm talking about? CELOC. Huh? He said for 159 years, I'm going to hold it back into the Cosmos era. But boy, when I give it to the first fruits, when I give it to these people that I will raise up in America, right? Now, mind you, it's only 4 guys really touting this hard. We all niggas. Waspy say we remnants of the Algonquins, and so does the Creator. Remember, he telling God. Creator is telling God, I'm going to raise up a people on this land. And they're going to be the fulfillment of what the great ancients of Pan used to talk about. Because remember, they was little guys, but they was big in spirit. But they was little guys. The ancient forefathers, the ancient Atlanteans, the ancient megalithic builders, the ancient mound builders always talked about a time when they would be big enough to whoop some ass and big enough to be spiritually high raised enough to become gods on earth at the same time. We the fulfillment of that in these times. The remnant of the people in the world who are bringing this out is called Algonquin. And it's only 4 of us. Don't nobody talk this except the horsemen. Don't nobody but the horsemen bring this out. Shout out to Selah Shalom. Shout out to Daryl Cosmon, Malachi Maccabee. You dig what I'm talking about? You know I'm going to pop my collar. But for my chosen shall come out boldly against all dominion except mine, the Creators, right? No gods over here, no lords over here. You dig what I'm talking about? Ain't no confusion over here. Ain't no saviors over here. Ain't nobody gonna save Cosmon but Cosmon. How I know? Because I've been standing by the creator 10 toes down since day one. Shout out to the creator gang, man. Shout out to the gang, man. Hit yourself with some vortexes in the chat. Let's just keep this thing moving. I'm not making this up. This in the book. You dig what I'm saying? I know it. I know it hit hard, but it's not my fault. Creator is telling God that on this land in America, North America, I'm going to raise up a people who shall be the fulfilling after 1848. They're going to be the fulfilling of what the Ions was professing way back in the first 3,000 years when a nigga could think. Like, man, I wish I was big enough to do something about these people out here. If I had the same power and I was just physically big enough. Huh? We the fulfillment of those prophecies. You special. For my chosen shall come out boldly against all dominion except mine. Look, the only 4 of us who have a book that's power is all Negroes coming out of North America. All know we sons and daughters of Iwata. You dig what I'm talking about? At least us 4, we all sons of the great Haonga, the first prophet, Iwata. Huh? We know we Indians. You dig what I'm talking about? And we the only ones doing it. Creator said 72,000 years ago, I'm going to raise up a people right here. I'm going to raise up a crazy nigga named Cosmo. He going to be crazy, though. He going to be crazy. But that boy going to put that work in. Said, look over America, my son. He talking to God. He called God his son. Somebody just called God son. Yo, son. Yo, B, look this over, kid. Word. Before I give you a noogie, say. You think what this is the guy, this father. See, God is the son, just like you the son. God is the daughter. Goddess is the daughter, just like you the daughter. At one time, living, breathing men, we all praise Yahweh the Creator. Right? And don't trip over the name. We saying Creator because we really that is the perfect word for what he is. He does everything. And it's only because he there that anything ever happens. It's a wild concept, but it makes sense if you the nigga that must do everything. And then give people the opportunity to act like it's just them. And you let them choose. You listen, the mind that must think this up is inconceivable. Man, shout out to the incomprehensible, man. It says, look over this land, look over America and provide for the time of who? Huh? For the time of who? When is Cosmon? Huh? Cosmon is now. Said, look over this land, my son, and provide for the time of who? Funny Cosmon up on here dropping it right now. He said, my prophets, Selah Shalom, Malachi Maccabee. You dig what I'm talking about? Daryl Cosmon. All the brothers, man. Putting in all the work, man. All the sisters that's behind this. The creator gang, man. Shout out to Essenes. Shout out to the Nazarenes. You dig what I'm talking about? All the people that really love the creator. Shout out to the Veda. Huh? Shout out to the Baha'i. You dig what I'm talking about? Shout out to the Thomasine. These are people, they don't even know. Right? Family connected all the way across the world. I go anywhere and I'm good. The earth is my turf. Right? Provide for the time of Cosmon. My prophets will foretell what shall happen. And afterwards, you shall look upon the mountains. Look, I've always had this question, though. What is Seth T seeing? Think about this. The Creator is about something. Think about this. Somebody is about to show God something he hasn't even thought of yet. Let that sink in. Let that sink in a second. Somebody is about to show God something to where God say, well, damn, that's smart. Somebody is about, listen, somebody is about to blow God's mind. What kind of knowledge you got? It can't be from a man. Listen to what he's saying. Somebody is calling God son. Come here, son. Yo, B. Word. Get over here, kid. He said, somebody is telling God what to do, right? Watch this. He says, afterwards, you shall look upon the mountains and the strong standing rocks, right? And the thought of your soul will pierce them. And its impression will be as a written book before the races of men in that day. So he's telling God, okay, God is standing on the eastern coast of the United States, right? God is a one-time living, breathing man. He had to come in a ship over the Atlantic, and he's standing on the East Coast talking to his little homie. Now, Creator is speaking to him. He's telling him, look out at the mountains. Now, at first, I'm thinking he's looking at the Appalachians. You dig what I'm talking about. You got a couple mountain ranges on the East Coast, right? But that don't make sense, because the real high places are the Rockies, right? And it's really plain, all, the Midwest is flat all the way to the Rockies, right? So let's just say he's looking out onto it. Look what he's saying. He's saying, you shall look out on the mountains, telling God this is what's going to happen. And you shall look out on the mountains and the strong standing rocks, and the thought of your soul will pierce them. So it's going to impregnate them with thought, it's saying, right? But I don't think that thought, I think it's an imprint of some sort, right? And its impression, okay, will be as a written book before the races of men today, in that day, right? Today. Nor will they know the cause, but they shall come forth in tens of thousands for my sake, putting away all gods, lords, and ancient tyranny. This hasn't happened yet. Your soul is talking to God. Your soul shall be my talisman, deeply engraved in the land and the water and the mountains. On this land alone, on America alone, no Lord or God shall be established by the sword. It never has and never will be. That's crazy, right? Remember, this is being written in 1882. Nobody knew none of this. This is why the separation between church and state, when everywhere else, the church dominates. It is what the church say. right? Not in America, right? We go to war over stuff like this. We create governments for stuff like this too. For it is on this land alone, North America, no Lord or God shall be established by the sword. For it is my land, which I planned for the deliverance of the nations of the earth. Funny, everybody is dying to get to North America. The host of both ships came and joined in gleesome reunion after 100 years absence. Then they traveled over the land and waters of the great western continent, right? And all the places that the Lord had searched out, to the east and west and north and south, right, i.e. in all directions, even to the farthest boundary, were revealed and recorded in the books of heaven. And God said, this is Stephens, right? One time living, breathing man. This is your bro, not your father. This is the brother. This is something you about to be in time to come. This is just a nigga with a certain level of knowledge. This is a regional manager at Walmart. Right? That's what God is. Don't be so spooky. It's just a guy with a really great job. God said, and you, my Lord, shall mark out the place of the dominion of the Creator in the founding of his kingdom on earth. And a record of your label shall descend through the lords and gods that come after you, even down to the time of the coming light of Cosma. Huh? Right? We see 1848, the Dan come, right? Spiritualism pop off. We got a halftime coming up for 2048, right? Ooh-wee. I can't wait to see what pop off. Because there's some light coming in Cosmon, ain't it? And the people who shall dwell here in that day, in 2024, shall never be worshipers of any Lord or God, such as other people shall worship. Let my seal be upon this land in the name of Jehovah, and to him I consecrate forever. I'm telling you that Jehovah is right smack dab in the middle of our country. So, thus, the beginning of the end of mortals worshiping gods, lords, is to start in North America. Ooh-wee. Who been teaching the start of this? Cosmon. Who is at the start of the false god killers? Creator gang. Selah Shalom. See, in the Cosmon, it's gonna be the beginning of the end of mortals worshiping gods and lords. Is to start in North America, right? The first people who start teaching that is faithists. And today in 2024 is the Creator gang. Boy, don't it feel good to be a faithist? Huh? Don't it feel good to be a faithist? Right? Because the beginning of the false god killers is Cosmon Cal, Daryl Cosmon, Selah Shalom, and Malachi Maccabee, the Creator gang. All the gang, all y'all. Huh? Y'all just the first fruits, y'all the beginning. It started here. The voice start here in North America. You just happen to be tied it in with the source of it all. The broadcasting is coming out of here now. Listen, I ain't worried about what's about to happen because I know what's about to happen. And so do y'all too. Y'all already know what's about to happen. That's why you over here looking for that higher light, because you like, bro, what they saying is happening is not happening. Remember the whole April 8th scare? Cosmo came on here, told you I was more powerful than your God because there was going to be an April 9th and a 10th and 11th, and then nothing was going to happen, didn't it? So who you going to start believing? You going to start believing the creator, or you going to believe the false gods? It's up to you. I'm here on behalf of the creator. I ain't said my own opinion yet. I'm just proving in real time that these people are now here on the earth who are being talked about in the first 3,000 years that a nigga could think. That's today in 2024. The objective proof is we are the niggas who are teaching no gods, no lords in North America. We the only ones. Tip a hat to yourself, man. You are on the cutting edge of a movement that's going to change the world. Even as on Pan, the worship of the Lord and the God was begun, right? This verse does not mean that the end of, watch this. Right? The start happened in the sunken continent, what we call Atlantis, what we call Lemuria. It's really called Pan. It is now the Florida Pacific and is the cause of the Pacific Ring of Fire. It is the cause that there is a mountain range, right, called the Rockies, right, in a place where it should be impossible to be. Listen, mountains are created where continents touch. There is no way the Rockies should be there. Go look at the continent. There ain't no split there. Something smashed it. Now, if you look at the western coast through Google Earth and you back out a little bit, you look and see the whole western coast is smashed. It's cracked like an egg. I'm saying it was hit 3 times. Didn't AIF call down the compressed the pressurized vortex from the heavens, smash it into the earth 3 times? I bet you I could bend up a mountain. I bet you 25,000 years ago that the Rockies and the Sierra Madres and the Incan Maya, the Incan South American mountains, the Andes, all raised 6,000 feet at the same time, all in the same time. I bet you that happened. All right. I already did that. I showed it. You did what I'm talking about. I've been done that homework. But they all rose up at the same time. How? What happened? That 3 parts of the continent, first of all, a whole range of mountains was made. That's what you not understanding. The whole range of mountains was made. The Rockies wasn't there. It shouldn't be there. Right? Especially when the continent itself is moving north and west away from the Pacific Rim. Right? It's moving north and west, like towards China. Right? The whole Pacific plate is. Right? So how did it crumple up in the middle where there is no way to do it. There is no, fault line, or the continent isn't cracked. It still isn't cracked. Right? Now, the worship of lords and gods is going to stop in America just like it started in Pan. This does not mean the worship of Yahweh's gods and lords, but Yahweh's gods and lords are not worshipped. Now, look. All the Algonquin tribes worship the Great Spirit, Yahweh only. All the North Americans, right, worship the Great Spirit only. Not everybody did this. It was characteristic of them never to accept any God or Lord. Same as today. I can't pay you. I couldn't even pay you niggas to go to a church. You questioning Bible, you questioning everything today, right? You're not going with the spiritual dupe out of church no more. That ain't sufficient enough, right? That's been a characteristic of your people since day one, to never accept a God or a Lord, right? That whole Christianity stuff was always against your insides, your guts. You knew that was wrong. And look, who? The American race. It's only one. Coming after them, us, are fast raising in the same exalted conception of the Great Spirit. No gods, no lords. Huh? And look, they've known this, right? They've been known this. This is from the book, The History of Ancient America, anterior to the time of Columbus, right? Right? This from page 26, book 1, chapter 2. Look what it say. As an essential contrast between the Aborigines, right? There's a contrast between the Aborigines, right? Is the fact that in the North, in North Gautama, they have, as already stated, no tradition of the crucifixion. While in other portions of the continent, Mesoamerica, the Caribbean, South America, all that. And for centuries before the rediscovery by Columbus, right, they had a perfect knowledge of every particular of the life and death of Christ, right? Again, in this part of the continent where there are stone architectural ruins. In the North, there are none. They possess their but embankments, Marathonian mounds, or tumuli, right? This is your mound builder culture, your she culture. These undeniable and characteristic opposites in the Northern and Mexican America increased by the late discovery of the ruined cities of who? Guatemala, the land. Guatemala also means the land of the four tribes, where four tribes become one, or the crossing. This is why you see a cross. It's not actually, for the most part, Christian per se. But there is a time where it does come over here about 250 BC, right? With your Quetzalcoatls, with the false Manitos, with Artura. You dig what I'm talking about? With that Father, Son, Holy Ghost. But you see it in the South. You don't see it in North America. Showing that even if they was ethnically the same, right? Which we see that's not true neither. There's multiple people here, right? They're not culturally the same also, right? They're culturally different, right? These undeniable characteristics, undeniable and characteristic opposites in the Northern and Mexican America increased by the late discovery of the ruined cities in Guatemala and the adjacent provinces. Shout out to my Belize and homeboys, man. Shout out to the Garifuna. Shout out to my brother Thomas. together with 15 years of personal observation in America, to which may be added a practical knowledge of the fine arts, enthusiasm in research, and mature reflection upon the entire subject, have authorized the confirmation of, as we believe, an original theory concerning the histories of the aboriginals of the two great divisions of the Western Hemisphere. This is Gautama. Right? Look what they saying. Right? They're talking about the contrast. Now, here's their theory concerning the histories of the aboriginals of the two great divisions of the Western Hemisphere, and for the unfolding of the present volume, we state, look, that they consist of two distinct races or people. Uh-oh. Let's just say, even though it's wrong, let's just say that the Mongoloid race was the first here, right? Well, then who is the other people? It's the ones that look like Negroes. Owaspy just clearing the way of this. It did what I'm talking about. But when we actually look back in the history where it points us to look at, we find out that it's telling us this story anyway. You just got to know what you're looking for, right? That they've been known this. Science only proves what Owaspy said. Remember that. That they consist of two distinct races or people. This will be without doubt admitted from the facts in the previous pages, and that South America, nationally speaking, included what is at present called Central America, and as a consequence, the ancient cities, now in ruins, belong to the same general empire, right? And that what South, or as we have termed in it in the preceding pages, Mexican America, was inhabited anterior to the north. We're going to show you that. Remember, they come from Guatemala. The Americans love to migrate north and south, not east and west like everybody else. This is why you don't see much of the Mayan culture on the east. It's primarily in the middle of the country. It's some on, by the shore, you know what I mean? But not like by the shore. Primarily this stuff is in the middle of the country, right? That the Aboriginal Mexican American and the West Indians were ancient Tyrrhenians of Phoenicia, right? Listen, and that they had landed on the Western continent from their native country more than 2,000 years ago. This is confirmed by tradition, analogies, in history, and prophecy. Well, if that is the case, right, then the opposite can be true, right? That the West Indians, the Caribs, went there and became the Tyrrhenians, the Phoenicians, right? We know that the Caribs already had the boating technology, right? This is why we got to always dodge the hijack, right? And then either way, right, let's look at the people, right? Because this is the Mexicans that they talking about. This is the Mexicans. This is from the Bonampak murals, right? In Mexico. This is from the Mayas, right? This is how they depicted themselves. Copper color skin tone, large negroidal, dreads with a taper fade, huh? Still rocking a headband, huh? Look like he asking, hey, you got a Swisher, cuz? You see how he hold his feet? No, I was about to twist something up in a minute. He holding the weed in his hand right here. I'm just playing, man. I'm just playing, but he holding it right here. He's like, man, I was about to twist something up, cuz. You dig what I'm saying? But let's get back to it. All right. Them boys from America didn't praise nothing but the Creator. Huh? So if the land of North Qatam, America, was ordained from the beginning, from the Creator, from the Creator's from the beginning of the Creator's kingdom on earth, what then of the inhabitants of the land? How would they reflect this, and what would be their role? What would their role be, if any, in preparation for the Creator's kingdom on earth? Not just no talky about it. What would be happening to the people, and what will we see as the result and preparatory stage for that stuff to start happening on earth today? The ancient indigenous inhabitants of North America, right, variously called Native Americans, First Nation, Amerindians, and Guatamians, have often, or also Algonquins. Algonquins are North Americans, right? Have often been given short shrift by man's government since the discovery of the Americans by the Europeans. Such governments have often treated them as inferior and insignificant, which is unfortunate because Native Guatamians, Americans, North Americans, have characteristics that demonstrate that they do indeed have an important part to play in the foundation of the Creator's kingdom here, right now, in 2024, right? Right here in North America, right? It's a it's a reason you a nigga. Listen, it's I know. And then they try to say that somehow this is a racist book. Remember, this the same white guy that you trying to say is a racist is telling you them guys in the end of the day, and that the whole new movement is going to come out of you, and that you were pre-planned upon more than 72,000 years ago. It's a reason Cosmine here. It's a reason you here listening. Already prophesied. Dang. You ever been a part of, you would ever think that you yourself were part of prophecy? I didn't see that in the Bible. Right? The whole, like, fit in the curses. I never fit the curses. Right? I'm more the guy who fit the blessings. So I never, you know what I mean? I understand it get tough, but boy, I had a great life. You dig what I'm saying? I wouldn't change nothing. Right? Such governments have often treated them as inferior and insignificant, which is unfortunate because the Negro of America, the Aboriginal, the Native North American, right? The indigenous North American, the quote unquote Negro, the African American, the black, the colored, have characteristics that demonstrate that they do indeed have an important part to play in the foundation of the Creator's kingdom on earth and breeding a whole new race of people. This is why you have a goddess, not a god, at these times. First and foremost, for the most part, these Ahuans, these native aboriginals, right, of North America, the Negroidal ones, right, who are Ahuan types, first and foremost, and for the most part, they have been worshipers of the Great Spirit for many thousands of years, we only know that the Indians did this. We know the Indians are the praisers of the Great Spirit, and it happened in North America primarily. We just showed through primary source that the people in Mesoamerica knew what was up with Christ and had them stories. We ain't know nothing about what was that. Listen, you come up here with that Bible you want to. They closed their eyes, right? And the white man came and with the Bible, and they had the land, and the white man taught them to pray with their eyes closed. And when they opened their eyes, they had the Bible, and the white man had the land. That's the slave narrative, right? We finding out there's something different going on up in North America, though. Because these Indians up here, for many thousands of years, praise the Great Spirit only, their culture, although close to the earth, is imbued. Hold on. Their culture although close to the earth, is imbued and powered by the Great Spirit and acknowledged to be of the Great Spirit. Right? Their social and tribal ways value freedom. Huh? Right? Shout to the Creator game. We always with the flow. Freedom, liberation, organization, and emancipation. That is the faith's way. Nobody moving like us. Their social and tribal ways, right, our communal ways, value freedom and the individual as an integral part of the family and community, which was also evident in the quality of their fathers and chiefs, among whom there were no tyrants or dictators. We ain't got none now neither. Their nurturing and raising of children with the ability to absorb orphans and lost children into their families and tribes previewed the enlightened upbringing of the children in the Creator's kingdom on earth, right? Like I told you, your mama ain't never turned down no little hungry kid, because your mama Indian like mine is. Your mama Aboriginal, whether she Aboriginal to the Americas, right? Aboriginal to Africa, Aboriginal to Europe, Aboriginal to India, right? And people went everywhere. But it's what you do who prove what you are. And in America, this is your heritage. This is your culture. Your culture is to nurture children. You know how many brothers and half brothers and sisters I done got because my mama done took in some kids from man, shout out my baby brother Raz and shit, you dig what I'm talking about? Shit, all the way back from Sheila Dean to Winnie Peel. I mean Pennywell, that's my brother, man. It is what it is. Mama took in everybody kids. Still do. Right? This is your culture. It just ain't never been highlighted that this is what you do. But now you're seeing it. Right? The Union of the Nations, established by Iwata, 3953 BC, still evident in the Iroquois Confederacy at the time of the European colonization, let's just say 1600s, right? It was still going on, been rocking on since roughly 4000 BC. Till we see till the European pop up on the time where we see the Iroquois finally getting it. And they only had it a couple hundred years. Because remember, they was a warrior people. Right? But we see that these indigenous Iroquois people, right, and their structure, which was set up by the great prophet of America, Iwata or Danangawata, you did what I'm saying in the Iroquois tongue, provided a model for the United States Constitution, Ben Franklin, citing it as an example to be modeled upon. Regarding the last point, Owaspi reveals that the model of the Great Spirit culture, including the Great Confederation of the Peace of Ahuenguatamans. Ahuenguatamans are the Negroido Americans, the copper-colored, brown. It's not mix it up with the red and all. We're talking about the copper-colored brown ones, generally tall, well-shaped, athletic, right? With long, black, coarse hair, right? So, because you come from a large nigger stock, and you, right, and you come from a short nigger stock called an iron, but the iron had primarily straight hair, while the Ahuan had more coarse hair. So when you mix it together, this is why they say you got Adam and Eve and all that, two different types of people. Well, these are your ancient, archaic human types, right? Both of them Negroid. One got straighter hair, the Iron, and us, the Ahuan, the large Negroidal types, right? So the peace of the Great Confederation of America come through the Negroidal Americans today. And it would come through what? The spirits of your ancient ancestors, the Algonquins right here. This is what Owaspi is saying. Proof of which is witnessed today in the international admiration and adaptation of the best of Guatemalan culture, right? What is the best of Guatemalan culture? Dominates the world? Hip-hop. Among seekers of what? Peace, truth, harmony. That's three parts of hip-hop, the foundation of hip-hop right there. Peace, truth, justice, freedom, harmony. Huh? Sound like Islam. Also sound like Islamism. Also sound like Christianity at its core. Sound like Buddhism at its core. Sound like Brahmanism at its core. Right? Proof of which today is the international admiration. What are they jocking from America? Hip hop. That is American culture. The seekers of peace in those countries follow us, the moral backbone of America. And now today we are standing by the Creator as we've always had. We just bringing our nationality, heritage, and culture back to life. Owaspi, first book of God, 27:47 through 49. The Creator saw the great work of Iwata, the prophet of America. This is your Abraham of America. Same time. Abraham was doing what he was doing for the Israelites. Was the same time Brahma was doing it. Was the same time Po was doing it in China. Was the same time Iwata was doing it in America. The Creator saw the good work of Iwata, right? And saw the people gathered together in tens of thousands of places. Then the Creator spoke to Iwata saying, you shall found 40 mighty nations. We call these states today. Oh, my son. And every nation shall be an independent nation. What? Ain't this whole country called Union? The United States? Huh? Right? It's roughly 6,000 years before that. Right? But all nations shall be united into a brotherhood of nations as one mighty people, and that shall be called Opa Egoquim. Huh? Signifying what? One. Opa Egoquim. Right? Egoquim becomes to the anglicized speaker Algonquin. What does it signify? One. Right? It is the unification of 40 mighty nations into one mighty people. It is called Opa Egoquim, or out of signifying one, or out of many one. For when I come in Cosmon, my people shall have many states like yours, and their combination shall be called what? Huh? Remember, this is given as prophecy in 3953 BC. Build a model for them, O Iwata. We see it come down through the Iroquois. For although when they come, they will overthrow your people on the earth in North America. The angels of your holy ones, the Native Americans, right? The North Americans, the North Guatamians, the Aboriginals of America, their spirits firm, right? The angels, of your holy ones, the North Guatamans, right? The Aboriginal American spirits firm in the adherence and obedience to the Great Spirit, what shall come and purge who? Create a gang shall come and purge who? The Negro of America, of their Savior, and make them clean in my sight. And then Iwata made the nations, united them into one mighty people, and called them Opa Ekoquim, right? Or out of many one, or Algonquin. And they planted the country over with cornfields and dwelt in peace. There is much more that the great spirit culture of the Guatamans, the Aboriginals, contributes to the formation of the Cosmon man, which can be read about in Owaspy. We shall later pick one example, the Holy Nation, as indicative of the roots of the Guatamians as being faithists and carried forth from that time. But first, our question is, since the Ions and the Gons, modern men, right? Ions, ancient upright men that could get it. This mean I get it. All right? And modern man, right? God, faithists of Ham, Africa, Shem, right? Persia and India and Southeast Asia, and Japheth, Russia and China, were commanded to not kill and therefore were non-resistant and herbivorous. What then are the faithists of America? The Aboriginal Americans, the Indians, right? Although being worshipers of the Great Spirit, they continue to eat flesh. Sure do. They sure do, right? This is why he says, I call you to stop being a carnivorous man of contention and be an herbivorous man of peace. Don't say nothing about vegan. You just say herbivorous. Although the worshipers of the Great Spirit, although being worshipers of the Great Spirit, they continued to eat the flesh of the animals, and many tribes did not participate in non-resistance. We should remember that although they were worshipers of the Great Spirit, many of them hunted and killed animals for food, clothing, and shelter, and today many continue to eat meat as their ancestors did. Recall that the Ions were those who were capable of heeding the Creator's angels, and they were the example to the Ahoengans, or the Iroqouis, the Indians, right, where the word Negro comes from. Right up until some 3,000 years ago, 1100 BC, with the Bronze Age collapse. But the Ahoengan, right, the iron-leaning Gan, or the Angui Gan, right, which is what a Negro is, being, right, but the Ahoengan, being of a lower grade than the Ions, and being more distant from the Creator, were mostly flesh eaters, right? This is not to say that they did not have a wonderful variety of vegetable foods, which they collected and cultivated in many tribes for going to hunt, relying on their vegetable, fruits, and grain staples, the Ahuengans, the Iroqouis. Iroqouis, who followed the teaching and practices of the Iron and who strived to maintain a vegetarian diet did exist. And we know this because Owaski reveals it, but also we have the evidence in the variety, quality, and quantity of vegetable foods that is the heritage of the North American, as well as some of the ceremonies of existing Guatamians, such as the corn ceremonies. We should also keep in mind that in pre-Columbian times and before the influence of the false god Christ, Luamon, right? This is why you see the cross, Father, Son, Holy Ghost with the Aztecs. This is why you see Father, Son, Holy Ghost with the Inca. This is why you see Father, Son, Holy Ghost doctrine with the Mayans, right? Because the false God Christ sent emissary angels whose goal was to convert or destroy the Indian. The tribal cultures among the Indians were not as narrow as modern depictions would portray. The Guatamians, the Indians, the Americans revered their peacemakers. Iwata was remembered among them as the great peacemaker. This is what Hiawatha is pulling back on, right? This heritage from thousands of years before. So today, the story we get is from Hiawatha, but just like Cosmon just showed you and put it on a timeline for you, it's 3953 BC. He's a contemporary of Abraham. So the story is coming from thousands of years before. And the common sign languages, what? Like even between the Iroquois and the Algonquins and the Hurons, and the common sign languages, which is today called English. This is the birth of your written English language. It's a common pidgin language. It's a trade language. And the common sign language and great network of trade evident by the far and wide dispersion of trade goods bespeaks of a long history of order and peace among the many tribes and nations, right? But we ain't gonna beat a dead horse. We're not gonna beat a dead horse, right? But let's get back to this name, right? Because the proof that Gautama is the name of the Americas comes out of the memory of your whole idea of who Noah is. See, you only heard about 3 brothers, right? Ham, Shem, and Japheth. You didn't even know that this is a 5-part story. There's 2 more brothers. One named Yista, the other Gautama. The brothers are the sons correlate to land masses and the people who get off of boats in those land masses and go to repopulate those areas, hence sons. Right? Now notice, right, that the fleet named Gautama was carried eastward. So to get to America, right, and you're coming eastward, that means you're coming out of the west or from the Pacific. And the country where they landed in these fleet of ships was also called Guatemala. Right? What is Guatemala? 339. The meaning of this word, Guatemala, right? And the land where they landed at, Guatemala, right? Is what? What does Guatemala mean? 4 tribes united in one. The word Guatemala would therefore mean the birthplace or the land of the 4 tribes of men united in one. Right? And the fleet of Gautama was carried eastward. And the country where they landed was also called Gautama, or America. The Lord said, from this place, from America, especially North America, my chosen shall spread out where? From Guatemala, right? They shall spread where? North and south. But they shall not inhabit the lands to the east or the west as far as the sea. This is why we see a mound builder culture primarily in the middle of our country. For they shall be what? Testimony today, right now in the Cosmos era, of the landing place from the continent that got sunken in the Pacific. The proof that they there, the proof that they came from there is that they are primarily in the center of America, right? But we see some of them great structures start off right there in Guatemala. Belize is his backdoor neighbor, and we see all the Quiche Maya there, right? Now the Maya and the Mayans are not the same people. Two different times. The Maya are older than the Olmecs. Let that sink in. He said, permit my people to give names to the places where I lead them, for this shall show in today, the Cosmos era, the work of my hand that was done in that day. Right? You go down here and it goes a little further and stuff, and it show you, it jump all the way in stuff that's being proved historically all the way in China and everything. You dig what I'm talking about? With Emperor Qin, the first emperor of Asia. But look, I want to show you all this. Look, this is a map of mounds in the Americas, right? I want y'all to see where they're primarily situated. Look in the west, ain't hardly nothing. But you come in the center, boom, 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 boom. Look at all this. All right. He said, my people shall not pretty much inhabitate the eastern coast. They're gonna stay in the middle. This is what we get to be called Mississippian culture. Shout out to my brother Michael Sykes, man, for coming through, man. My bad, I was building. I was trying to let you see you come through, man. But look, I ain't gonna keep y'all too long. It's 11 o'clock. I gotta go get the wifey. So with that being said, man, I hope y'all got a little something, man. If y'all got a little something up out of there, man, hit me with a 3 in the chat. You know what I mean? We'll come back down and break part 2 down. We'll get more into the Haudennashanee. But if you can see this, let me see if I can blow this up. Right? You see the primary place where these people stay is in the center, in the Midwest part of the country. And look what the creator is telling them 6,000 plus years ago. Right? That boom. But they shall not, look, the people shall spread from Guatemala, north and south. Only people in the world who do this. But they shall not inhabit the lands to the east or to the west. This is your mound builder style. Right? As far as the sea. For they shall be testimony today to those who can see this, those who have ears to hear and eyes to see, right? It will be testimony of the landing place from the continent of Pan, right? Why did they stop and just build here? Why didn't they build all the way in the Rockies? All the way there. It's a lot of flat land right here. You could have built in Oklahoma. You dig what I'm talking about? Kansas. But look, right here in the middle. Boom, 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 boom. Look, smack dab in the riddle. Look all that. Look at, guess where that is? That's Iowa. Look at all this. These are mounds. Thousands. But the concentration is smack dab in the middle of the country. I mean, you got a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but look where it's at. right? It's not primarily on the East Coast, and it's not primarily in the West. It's in the Midwest on purpose. How was Owaski doing this in 1882? How was the creator even bringing this out in 3953 BC? What? Actually, this is from a prophecy given in the first 3,000 years of man existing. Yeah. Owaski is talking about something different. It's bringing back a different type of heritage and understanding. You dig what I'm saying? And if I'm going to be digging into these histories, I need to see myself in them. Nationality, heritage, culture, and ethnicity, man. We're going to bring it out in the Haudennashanee, right? In the Iroqouis part 2, man, we're going to get back at it, right? But for right now, all I want you to do is breathe in. Let that light in, man. This was number 143. We moving, man. We about to be at 200 in a minute, right? Listen, slowly but surely, channel growing, man. Thank y'all, everybody, man. Go hit that subscribe button, man. Go out, come back in, hit the notification button. Again, make sure you get all the notifications. Sub, like, share, man. Share this to your TikTok. Share this to your social medias, man, because what I want you to do now is breathe in and let that light in. Hey, y'all, I'm Cosmon, and I'm out.
And oh yeah, put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feel it when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh, it's that Jehovih, that chow mein, that papa bull, that towel mein, since sunset in the IroqouIan. My brain moving like Tao Sang, so as above, it's so below. That up and that down thing, this flow is atmospheric. I call that a ground game. See, water is knowledge, so if I'm teaching, you're learning. So how your God make a sun without vortexing and current? See the pattern is ponic, I'm reaching out for my people. Oh, watch me flow through your speakers, you feel the force of the ether. And when the force gets the equal, I'm taking off like an eagle. Police popped the pastor yesterday for pushing put equal. My DNA is Moshe. Mix that thing with higher water. My spirit rate is OTN. It's just a higher order. Got more light than Kavita. Rap a lot just like Tila. Went from sinner to saint. Shout out my big homie Sela. Got more torque than a sports car. Got more work than a door star. And the 4 million I make, I'm giving the Dr. Umar. Oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you feel it up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Super 7 in my rites and ceremonies. I'm married to Jehovah, holy matrimony. Confucius say, in the words of Caillou, before you hit the tomb, be a bridegroom. Only got one question for Miss Susan B. On how to last Ahuin is now a Iroqouis. Blame my inspiration, I'm just thinking thoughts. But in the way of God's, we gon' keep it short. Why Jesus wanna kill me, Matthew 10:34. Just a couple questions that I'm needing to know. Oh, watch me flow, it's so potent. Set the vortex in motion. Super 7, I'm floating across the Aegean Ocean. Oh, you a Muslim now, so I guess you making salat. Well, I'm an Israelite, I'ma make him at the Shabbat. Got Moses on the bumper, super slap off in my spaceship photosphere. So I stay lit, peace and light to the faith is so yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air. Tell me how you feeling when you're feeling up there. When you in the sky breathing rarefied air. When you're breathing rarefied air, oh yeah. Put that Super 7 in the air.